Okay, so for all these problems, I want to find theta in radians, and we're between 0 and 2 pi. We're including 0, we are not including 2 pi. So let's say I tell you cosine of theta is root 2 over 2. Okay, this has been rationalized. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to revert back before it was rationalized. So if we're reverting back, we have the cosine of theta is equal to 1 over root 2. And we know cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So if we're thinking of a right triangle, this is theta, and the adjacent is 1 and the hypotenuse is root 2, which special triangle is this? 45, you got it. This is a 45, 45, 90. So since we know theta is equal to 45 degrees, we want to translate this into radians, which will be what in radians? Pi over 4. Now, I hope that you have that memorized, but let's say you didn't have that memorized. What should you have done if you didn't have that 45 was pi over 4? You would have taken 45 and multiplied it by what? Pi over 180, which would give you the pi over 4. Okay, so let's think about this. Do we agree in the original problem cosine was positive? Since cosine was positive, we know all students take calculus. That means this could potentially be in 2 out of the 4 quadrants. We can have, well, let's set this up. We are 0, 2 pi, pi over 2, pi, 3 halves pi. Now, what I had told you the last class was when we have this, I want you to make all of those quadrant angles in the same denominator as our reference angle. So our reference angle has a denominator of 4. That means all these quadrant angles, I want to have a denominator of 4. So 0 will stay 0, but this will be 8 pi over 4. This will be 2 pi over 4. This will be 4 pi over 4. And this will be 6 pi over 4. Now, if we are working with pi over 4, do we agree that's going to be in quadrant 1? And also, because it's positive, all students take calculus, I also have to be in quadrant 4. So I know I'm going to be in those 2 quadrants. So this is the pi over 4. But then I'm also here in this quadrant. So we know this is 8 pi over 4, but now I'm going to subtract a pi over 4, which will bring us where? To what? 7 pi over 4. So our theta is pi over 4, which was the one in quadrant 1, but then we were also 7 pi over 4, which brought us to quadrant 4. Okay, let's do another one. All right, number 2. If we have sine of theta is equal to 1 over 2, First thing we have to do is figure out which reference angle this is. So if this is my theta, we know sine is opposite and over hypotenuse, so that's 1 over 2. Which special triangle is this? This is a 30, 60, 90. So if this is 1, this is 2, this has to be root 3. So which angle is the theta, the 30 or the 60? 30, you got it. So we know theta is equal to 30 degrees, which is the equivalent to what in radians? Pi over 6. Are these good ones to memorize? It is good to memorize the 30, the 60, the 45. Okay, so once again, the sign of theta was positive. So remember, all students take calculus. That means which two quadrants do I have to be in? I have to be in quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. So now I'm going to write my quadrant angles. So we're 0, 2 pi, pi over 2, pi, 3 over 2 pi. Now I want to make all the quadrant angles with the same denominator as my reference angle. So my denominator is 6, so I'm going to try to make all the quadrant angles have denominators of 6. So 0 stays 0. We'll have 12 pi over 6. Then we'll have 6 pi, we'll have 3 pi over 6. Then I'll have 6 pi over 6. And lastly, I will have 9 pi over 6. So the first triangle is in quadrant 1. We know that's pi over 6, which fits right into quadrant 1, right? Quadrant 1's between 0 and 3 pi over 6, so pi over 6 fits right into that. So that is definitely our first angle is pi over 6. But now we have to go into quadrant 2 and make that same triangle there. So now pi over 6 in quadrant 2, well, we know this is 6 pi over 6, but then I'm going up, right? So this is going to be 6 pi over 6 minus 1 pi over 6, which brings us to what? 5 pi over 6. So theta is pi over 6 or 5 pi over 6. So the tangent of theta is equal to negative root 3. I'm going to ignore the negative right now. I'm just trying to find my reference angle. So remember, tangent is the opposite over the adjacent. So this is root 3 and 1. So what kind of triangle is this? A 30, 60, 90. Oops, wrong one. This is a 30, 60, 90, and theta has to be 60. So now I know theta is 60 degrees, which is the equivalent to what in radians? Pi over 3. You got it. But this one's a little bit different than the other ones we've done. Right, because my tangent is negative, because tangent, Augie, you with us? Because the tangent is negative, I'm not in quadrant 1. Which two quadrants do we have negative tangent? 2 and 4. 2 and 4. So I'm going to have a triangle in quadrant 2 and a triangle in quadrant 4. I'm going to set up my quadrant angles. So this is 0, 2 pi, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2. And now I'm going to try wherever I can to make a denominator of 3. So I'm going to have 0 and 6 pi over 3. Can I change the pi over 2? No. But I can change the pi. This will become 3 pi over 3, and I can't change the 3 pi over 2. Okay, so now I have to go to quadrant 2 and 4. I can't be in quadrant 1, because in quadrant 1, tangent is positive and our tangent is negative. So I'm starting off here. Okay, so this is 3 pi over 3, but I'm going to subtract because I'm going back up, right? I'm not fully here yet. So I'm going to subtract 1 pi over 3, which is going to bring us to 2 pi over 3. So theta will be 2 pi over 3. And now I want to do the same thing over here in quadrant 4. This is pi over 3. So now I have, this is 6 pi over 3, and I'm going to subtract 1 pi over 3, which is going to bring us into 5 pi over 3. Sure, right here. So I probably shouldn't call this theta. I should call this reference angle so we don't get confused. These are all the reference angles. Call this theta. We'll call it reference angle so we don't get confused. Yes. Yeah, so these are all not thetas. These are the reference angles. Let me explain why they were part of the answers. The reason they're part of the answers, because right here, cosine was positive. So where is cosine positive? Cosine is positive in quadrant 1 and quadrant 4. So the reference angle in quadrant 1 is the reference angle. There was no subtracting or adding to it. All right, one more, then we're done. I know. I'll let you start your homework. So this is saying cosecant of theta is undefined. For it to be undefined, where am I on what? One of the axes, right? I have to be on an axis. So let's just set this up. We know this is 1, 0. This is 0, 1. This is negative 1, 0. And this is 0, negative 1. Now cosecant, if you guys remember, is r over y. And on all of these, the radius is 1. So we need to find where y is 0. So you tell me, oh, sorry, I forgot to set up my angles. 0, 2 pi, pi over 2, pi, 3 over 2 pi. So you tell me, where is y 0? Pi and not 2 pi, because remember, we're between 0 and 2 pi, 0 included, 2 pi not included. So we're going to choose 0 and we're going to choose pi. So theta will equal pi and 0. I think that might have been the quickest lesson we've had yet. We're done.